The Palace Clinic ship floated above a quiet moon like a silver seed. Inside, the triage hall was full of soft light and soft voices. The human technician stood by the entry screen with a small tool case in his hand. He had trained for Starship systems, not royal clinics, but a supply shuttle had asked for help, and he did not like to say no when someone needed care. Orderlies moved with steady steps. Visitors spoke in calm tones. Machines hummed in the walls like a gentle river. A nurse came toward the human and offered a translation band and a thin pair of gloves sealed in a clear packet. She was tall for her people, with a quiet face and careful eyes. Her uniform carried the sign of the nursery ward and a crest of the Queen. "Please place the band on your wrist," she said in clear standard through the device. "It will help you understand us. I am here to guide you today." He gave a small nod. "Thank you. I am good with filters, vents, and simple monitors. If something hums or chokes, I can make it breathe again." The nurse's smile warmed the air. "Then the clinic is safe in your hands." She showed him the sanitation field. It was a clear doorway that brushed the skin like a soft breeze. She also showed him how to tune the triage monitors. He listened with focus. He liked her calm style. She spoke as if time was kind. In truth, time in a clinic was never kind, but her voice made it feel less sharp. They walked past a window. Outside, the moon's thin clouds crossed like feathers. Inside, small children of the royal city slept in clear cradles. The cradles glowed with steady status lights. He noticed how the room had been planned with care. There were quiet corners. There were chairs for guardians. There was soft music from a ceiling speaker. He also saw a faint flicker on a wall panel. The filter graph for the nursery ward showed a slow drift. The line was not in the danger zone, but it did not sit flat. The human stopped. "Your air intake shows an uneven pull. It will be worse during the hour shift. I can fix this if I may." The nurse looked at the panel. She touched the crest on her arm as if to ask for harmony. "Yes, please do." He opened his case. He took out a small sensor that he had built from spare parts. He clipped it near the vent and left the reader on the floor. The numbers came up in a simple green font. He crouched and listened. The hum in the wall was steady but a little high. His hands moved like someone tying a strong knot. He adjusted a valve and added a mesh disc to smooth the flow. The graph leveled. The hum fell to a calm tone. The nurse watched with interest. "You treat machines as if they can feel." He smiled without pride. "Air is like a song. If a song jumps up and down, the lungs do not like it. A steady line helps small chests and small hearts." The nurse nodded. "Words that heal. I will remember them." An orderly called her name from the next room. A new set of arrivals had come in from the city surface. They were not ill, only tired from travel and change in gravity. The nurse guided them with the same calm voice. She taught them to breathe with the clinic music. The human helped by checking intake seals and making sure the translation bands worked. A small child pointed at him with wide eyes. The child had a soft blanket with the Queen's crest. The human waved in a friendly way. The child seemed shy, and the human did not move closer. He was careful with space. He knew that care began with respect. As the hour moved on, the clinic grew busier. The nursery ward kept its gentle rhythm, but the triage hall felt like a tide. A palace courier rushed in with a sealed case. A court official with narrow shoulders followed. The courier spoke to the nurse in her language. The translation band hummed, and the words came to the human's ear. "New policy documents," said the courier. "2 signatures are needed for release. A nurse of the nursery ward and a bonded partner of that nurse." The human looked down at his tool case. He did not expect to be part of any signing. The nurse thanked the courier and set the case aside on a high shelf. She checked the time code and prepared a stylus. She glanced at the human with a thoughtful look. "We will manage this when the ward is calm," she said. The court official, who had the narrow shoulders and a stiff collar, did not smile. "The law says bonded partner. If the nurse has no partner, the counselor must stand in. I am the counselor assigned." A tiny frown crossed the nurse's face, only for a breath. "We will follow the law." The human saw the small change. He did not know the full meaning, but he felt there was a story in those words. He turned back to the vent panel to give them privacy. A monitor beeped. The human reached for a long cord that ran behind a bed frame. He tugged gently and the connector slid free. He needed both hands to hold the cord and the reader, and his wrist translation band pressed against his skin. The band's sensor picked up his next words as the nurse leaned over to hand him a clip. "Hold the reader steady," she said. He took the clip. The cord shifted again and he almost dropped the reader. He laughed in a light, friendly way, more at himself than at anyone else. "Yes, baby," he said to the reader the way people sometimes talk to a stubborn tool. "Stay still for 1 second." The translation band heard the tone, the context, and the phrase. It did its best. The clinic language had a form of address that sounded like care and like promise at the same time. In that culture, the phrase that meant "my dear one" was a legal signal when spoken with an accepting tone in the presence of a nurse and a court official. It did not care if the dear one was a person or a thing. It cared about voice and witness. The band translated the human's words into the clinic language in a clear voice. The court official's eyes widened. The nurse blinked once, then twice. A gentle chime sounded in the ceiling. It was not loud. It was like a bell that told the hall that a vow had been heard. The human froze. He looked up. What was that? The nurse's calm returned, but now it had a new weight. "A recording has noted a promise. Your words were taken as a vow of care. In our law, spoken in this hall, a vow heard by a nurse and a counselor creates a bond. The bond protects the nurse and joins the speaker to her duty. It is called a spouse bond, but it is more about guardianship and trust than romance. I understand you may not have meant it. Still, the Soundwave heard it as true." The human felt heat rising to his face. "I was talking to the tool. I did not mean to hurt anyone. I did not know your law." The court official stepped forward with a flat tablet. "The law honors the Soundwave over intent. A bond formed is a bond. You may submit a petition to untie it, but doing so would place a shadow on the nurse's name because it would say she accepted a false promise. The Queen's Court keeps careful records." The nurse lifted one hand gently. "Please, the triage hall still needs peace. We will not argue here." She turned to the human with a look that was steady and kind. "I know your heart did not wish to harm. The bond does not force love. It only says you will stand with me in care when asked, and you will speak honest words in public moments. If you wish to end the bond later, I will not stop you. But for now, let us finish our work. The children breathe easier when the air is steady, and your hands have made the air steady." Something in her voice helped him breathe too. He pressed his fingers to the translation band. He remembered the way she had taught him the sanitation field. He remembered how she had said that time can be kind. He nodded once. "All right. I will not run from a promise, even by accident. Let us help the ward." The court official made a small mark on the tablet and stepped back. The gentle chime in the ceiling faded. The hall returned to its soft rhythm, and life went on, as it must in places where care is daily work. The human focused on tasks he could do well. He checked each vent seal in the nursery room. He tuned the music so the low notes matched a calm breath. He moved with care around guardians and staff. The nurse moved beside him with a smooth step. They learned each other's pace quickly. When he bent to check a lower panel, she handed him tools before he asked. When she leaned over to adjust a cradle, he adjusted the room lights so she could see without strain. A new guardian came in, holding a baby with wide, sleepy eyes. The child made a small sound, not a cry, only a question. The nurse placed the baby in a clean cradle and hummed a simple pattern. 1, 2, 3, rest. The human watched and then matched the pattern by tapping the monitor with a pen, very softly. The baby blinked and calmed. The guardian smiled with quiet relief. The nurse gave the human a small look of respect. "It works better when two keep the count," she said. He nodded. "It feels like rowing a small boat. One keeps time with oars, the other watches the shore." An hour passed. The air hummed with balance. The clinic felt like a harbor after a storm. The nurse took a brief moment to drink water and offered a cup to the human. He took it and thanked her. "I am sorry for the vow," he said in a low voice. "On my world, that phrase is a very light joke. It is not a promise. I would not play with a promise. I hope you can forgive the harm." The nurse looked at the cup in her hands. There was a little reflection of the ceiling in the water. "On my world," she said, "we believe that care is a choice that must be made many times. A bond begins with words, yes, but it continues with actions. Today you have chosen care each time you saw a need. That is what I will remember. If you choose to end the bond later, I will honor that. For now, you stand with me. That is enough." He felt the tightness in his chest ease. The court official stood across the hall and watched with a night cycle began with a soft dimming of the lights. The palace clinic ship lowered its music to a slow rhythm that matched the breath of sleeping children. The human technician checked the last vent graph and wiped his hands on a clean cloth. The lines were flat and calm. The cushions he had made from storage sheets rose and fell in small waves that took the edge off the air changes. The nurse watched the same graph and gave a small nod. "You have a patient mind," she said. "The room learns from you." He smiled in a careful way. "The room learns from you first. I follow your steps." They stood together for a quiet moment. Staff finished notes, guardians lowered voices, and the clinic felt like a harbor again. A tray with warm tea waited on a side table. The nurse poured 2 cups and passed one to him. The tea smelled like leaves and rain. He warmed his hands on the cup and let his mind rest. "Will you sleep before dawn?" she asked. "Or will you stay near the ward until the path of voices?" "I will stay," he said. "If I try to sleep, my head will make noise. Here, the hum is steady. It helps." She took a sip and looked at the cradles. "When I was a student, my teacher said that all care begins with one question. What will keep the smallest one calm? If we answer that well, most other choices become clear. That is a good rule," he said. "Simple and strong." She lifted her wrist and showed him the band she wore under her sleeve. It was not a translator. It was a thin braid with beads of wood. Each bead had a tiny mark. "This is our counting." "Braid," she said. "When I work a long shift, I touch the beads to keep my own breath steady. It reminds me to slow my steps. It stops my voice from rushing." He looked at the marks with respect. "Does the braid have a story?" "It does," she said. For a long time, the nurses of the nursery ward did not stand high in the court. We kept watch in the quiet rooms while councils argued in bright halls. A queen from long ago had a child with a soft chest. He could not keep a strong rhythm without help. A young nurse made the first braid to count the small breaths. The queen wore a matching braid and counted with her. The child grew well. After that, the law changed. The nurse voice gained weight in the court. He held his tea and listened. The story was simple and honest. He liked it. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "It helps me know why the bond matters." She turned the cup in her hands. "I want you to know something else. In our language, the word that your band translated as spouse has layers. It can mean the partner who shares a home. It can also mean the one who shares public duty so another is protected from pressure. The court sometimes tries to use the second meaning as a tool. They say a nurse must take a bond so a counselor cannot overrule a care plan. The bond gives the nurse a shield. But if the bond is false, that shield cracks. Then shame falls on the ward. We carry that risk with care." He thought about the stiff counselor with narrow shoulders and about the way staff had relaxed after the air grew even. He also thought about the light joke that had become a bell. He set his cup down. "I cannot change the way it began," he said. "But I can choose what it means from now on. I will not make your shield weak. I will not use your law to feel important. I will only speak truth. I will only claim what I can do with my hands." She bowed her head once. "Truth is enough." A young orderly stepped over from the door. The orderly held a small tool the human had lent earlier. "I checked the secondary intake like you showed me," the orderly said in standard with a careful accent. There was dust on the mesh. I washed it and dried it the way you said. The hum is smoother. You did well, the human said. Teaching your hands to listen is the start. Thank you. The orderly glowed with quiet pride and returned. To the station. The nurse watched the exchange and hid a small smile behind her cup. The ship shifted slightly as the night cycle air pumps changed pace. The room stayed calm. A low chime blinked on the supply board. The nurse walked to the console and opened the message. She read in silence, then spoke in a steady tone. Yes, Thorough. Supply shuttle reports a delay of 6 hours. The humidity vapor will not arrive before second light. We will be at the safe minimum by early morning. How much can we save? He asked. Enough for safety until dawn, she said. After that, we must bend consumption or find another way. He rested his palm on the wall near a vent. The metal felt cool. He looked up at the ceiling where the dehumidifier coil sat behind panels. He looked at the clear sheets he had turned into cushions. He looked at a roll of sterile drapes on the shelf. A simple idea formed in his mind like a small bridge between two stones. We can catch what we already have, he said. The air we clean gives off a small amount of water when it hits the cold coils. It drips into the drain and goes to waste. If we hang a woven shape under the cold spots, the water can cling and gather. If we add a narrow guide, it can fall into sterile cups. We can reuse a little for the room humidifiers. The nurse's eyes sharpened. Will it stay clean? We will keep it inside the sanitation field, he said. We will only touch it with gloved hands. We will boil what we catch and use the gentle vapor. The volume will be small but helpful. She nodded. Show me. They opened 2 ceiling panels near the wall where air ran coolest. Behind them, the coils were white with a thin film of cold. He took 3 sterile drapes and cut them into long bands with steady hands. He wove the bands into simple nets, folded like the wings of a kite. He clipped each net to a thin rod so that the fabric hung a finger's width below the coils. He placed a narrow sterile strip at the lowest point of the fabric so drops would gather and fall along that path. He set clean cups under the strips. The first drop formed, grew heavy, and fell with a soft click. The nurse watched the slow rhythm of the drops with the attention of a poet. We will call them dew nets, she said. The human smiled at the name. The young orderly came to watch and learned how to replace a cup without shaking the net. The net swayed once and then settled. Drops kept forming. They recorded each step for the ward guide. The nurse wrote instructions in simple language. The human added small drawings that showed the angle of the nets and the height of the cups. Together they tested the boil cycle and the small vapor loop that would feed into the humidifiers. The loop hummed. The air felt softer by a touch. The court counselor arrived with 2 aides and a tablet. The counselor looked up at the open panels, then at the nets, then at the cups. The expression did not change. You are modifying clinic systems without a signed order, the counselor said. If a child is harmed, the record will show your names. The nurse stood between the counselor and the ward. Her voice stayed level. The law of the nursery ward grants the senior nurse freedom to act for the safety of breath during supply failure. The record will also show that our humidifier consumption has dropped and that the room remains in safe range. The counselor pressed flat lips together. Where is the engineering stamp? The human lifted a page on the console where he had drawn a simple diagram. I am a certified systems technician. I do not hold your palace stamp. I will sign with my license number from the guild. I will also present the test results of the boil cycle and the sterility check. You may watch the test now if you wish. He held the test strip up to the light. The nurse read the color with the scanner. The result flashed clean. The counselor watched and finally gave a tight nod. The queen does not like surprises near the ward, the counselor said. If you fail, the path of voices will not be kind. Truth will be kind, the nurse said. We are not hiding. The counselor left. The aides looked back once with curious eyes and then followed. The nurse breathed out slowly. The human kept his focus on the nets until his own breath matched hers. The ship's lights dimmed a little more for deep night. The clinic grew quiet. Guardians dozed in chairs. Staff rotated in pairs to keep watch. The human and the nurse walked the perimeter of the nursery room. They checked seals by hand. They touched each cradle stand to feel for shakes or squeaks. In one corner, a small child's breath sped up, and then slowed. The guardian stirred and looked worried. The nurse moved closer with gentle steps and spoke in a low tone that was like a song. The human matched her pace and tapped a soft count on the cradle frame. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. The child's breath found the rhythm and steadied. The guardian smiled and relaxed. When they finished the round, the nurse guided the human to a quiet corner where a small mat lay on the floor. "Sit," she said. "I will show you how we practice for the path of voices." He sat cross-legged. The mat was firm. She set the counting braid on the floor between them and placed a small tile beside it. The tile had a thin line that pulsed with light. "This tile is a cousin of the path," she said. "It listens to vibration and breath. We use it for training new nurses to speak steady words when the room is not calm." He placed his hand on the tile. The line flashed in time with his pulse. He felt a little silly and a little moved by the simple tool. She put her hand beside his. The line found a shared pace. "Say one true thing," she said. "It can be small." He thought, and then spoke. "I am tired." The tile glowed steady. She nodded. "Say one fear with a true root." "I am afraid I will fail your people," he said. The tile held steady again. His voice shook a little. He was surprised to see the line did not. She tilted her head. "Truth can shake in sound and still be true," she said. The screen above the hall showed the nursery room in clear light. Staff stood ready with counting braids. The young orderly held a small pointer and tried not to smile too wide. The human set his spoon and cup metronome on the stand and tapped, a slow, steady beat. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. The sound was gentle, like rain on a window. The nurse spoke to the ward team through the link. Her voice was calm and even. "We match our words to the breath," she said. "We count together. We do not rush. We let the room learn our pace." On the screen, 2 nurses mirrored her motions. They placed hands above a cradle and showed a guardian how to count with fingers when fear makes words stumble. The human pointed to the vent graph in the lower corner. He showed how the clear cushions near the vents rose and fell like small waves to smooth the air. "Watch the line," he said in simple standard. "See it flatten. That flat line makes small lungs happy." The line did flatten. The hall could see it. A low whisper passed through the seats, not loud. Only the sound of people noticing a thing and believing it with their own eyes. The path of voices under the human's boot stayed quiet, like a lake at dawn. The queen leaned a little forward in her chair. Her eyes were warm. "Continue," she said. The human lifted a dew net from a tray beside him. It was a clean weave, fresh and dry. He showed the hooks and the narrow strip that guided drops to a cup. The nurse explained how they boiled the water and sent a gentle vapor back to the room. The aides who had come in the night took notes with quick hands. A guardian at the back raised a hand. The queen nodded to her. The guardian stood, shy but brave. "What if my hands shake when I count?" she asked. "What if I break the rhythm?" The nurse answered with a small smile. "Your child does not need perfect counting," she said. "Your child needs your steady care. If your hands shake, you place them on the cradle frame. You listen to the room music. You breathe first. Then you begin again. We count to return, not to impress." Another hand rose. A staff member asked, "If a vent rattles and I feel afraid, what do I do first?" The human kept his words plain. "Do not yank the wire," he said. "Touch the wall near the vent. If the hum is high, turn the small valve 1/4. If the hum is low, turn the other way. If you are unsure, call. It is not shame to call. It is care." The path still held silence. The floor liked these words. The queen sat back with a gentle breath. The counselor watched with a face like a still pool, but the eyes softened by a hair, as if a stone at the bottom had moved. The nurse turned from the screen to the hall. "We will now speak about the bond," she said. Our law gives weight to a partner who shares duty in public. I asked nothing more than truth and shared work. He gave both. The Queen's gaze returned to the human. We come to a hard but simple question, she said. When a bond forms by mistake, the court must ask if the bond remains by choice. The nurse has told us how you worked. The path has heard your voice. Now I ask in plain words, with knowledge and without fear of shame. Do you choose to stand with this nurse as her partner in care under our law? The hall held its breath. The human felt the small beat of the spoon and cup at his side. 1, 2, 3, rest. He looked at the nurse. She did not push him with eyes or tilt of chin. She only stood with quiet strength, as she had in the ward. He looked at the Queen. He looked down at the path. He opened his mouth to answer. A soft alarm blinked on the far wall. It came from the city ward that had linked to watch the lesson. A storm front had rolled across the district near the river. Pressure in one clinic dropped too fast when an outer door stuck open during a delivery. The vent graph on the big screen dipped in a way no one liked to see. The Queen did not show panic. Her voice stayed steady. We will put truth into action, she said. Nurse, human, guide them from here. The screen filled with the city ward. The image shook a little. People moved quickly but not wildly. A nurse in a green sash spoke into her band with tight control. Outer door is sealing now, she said. We have a line of children in the East Bay. 2 cradles are near the intake that is pulling hard. The nurse on the path raised her, hand like a lighthouse raising its lamp. Slow your steps, she said. You are safe. We will count together. Move the 2 cradles 3 steps away from the intake. Use chairs as a bar to make a soft wall. We will build a windbreak. The human slid the spoon and cup closer to the hall microphone and kept the beat. 1, 2, 3, rest. He spoke to the city ward in short, clear lines. Pull a storage sheet. Fold it once long. Clip the top edge to the rail. Leave the bottom loose to sway. It will take the pull of the air. Do not seal it tight. Let it breathe. On the screen, a young tech with quick hands did as he said. The sheet moved like a flag. The pull of the intake lost its sharp bite. The vent graph trembled and then smoothed. One cradle's lights eased from yellow to green. A guardian wiped tears with the back of a hand and then smiled in relief. The hall watched the change in quiet awe. The path under the human's feet stayed silent. Each word he spoke landed without echo. The Queen placed one hand on the arm of her chair and listened without moving. Now, the human said, check your dew nets if you built them. If not, hang clean gauze under the cold coil. Boil the catch. If you have no boil unit free, use the small portable one near your supply door. The one with 2 handles. Yes, that one. A staffer found it and held it up. The city ward nurse nodded with brisk pride and set it going. The human pointed to the graph. You have enough for the hour, he said. You are not in danger now. The city ward nurse looked into the camera. Her face had lines of care, but also light. We have it, she said. Thank you. The screen split to show the palace nursery again. In both views, the airlines were calm. The hall exhaled as one. The Queen gave a small nod that meant more than applause. The counselor stepped forward, tablet in hand. The court has seen a quick hand and a steady voice, the counselor said. We have also seen that the bond gives the nurse a shield and gives the partner a seat at policy talk. That seat is not a small thing. If you accept the bond, you will sign your name next to hers when we write rules. You will be blamed when we fail and thanked when we succeed. You will stand beside her when pressure tries to bend her plans. Do you accept this weight with full knowledge? The human did not answer at once. He chose to feel the weight before he spoke to it. He thought of the night, of dew nets, of staff who learned fast because they cared. He thought of the Queen, counting for her child in some old room. He thought of the nurse who could have asked the court to cut the bond, but had asked only for truth and shared duty. He lifted his eyes. I accept for this season, he said. I do not promise forever. I promise for as long as I can serve with clean hands and honest voice. When I can no longer serve, I will say so. Until then, I will stand. He used the clean word she had taught him. He spoke it in her language so the hall could hear the right shape. Partner in care. The path did not ring. The silence felt full, as if the floor had nodded. The nurse did not reach for him, did not make a flourish. She only placed her counting braid on the stand and untied one small loop at the end. She handed him the loose thread. "Tie this to your wrist," she said softly. "It means nothing to those who do not know. It means duty to those who do." He tied it. The braid lay warm against his skin, light but real. The Queen's eyes were kind and clear. "The bond stands by choice," she said. "The hall has seen it. The path holds it." A rustle moved along the benches near the side. A senior court member held a thin case with seals in deep blue wax. The counselor received it, opened it, and read with care. Then the counselor looked up. "There is a clause in the old record," the counselor said. "It states that when a vow forms by translation, an off-world partner must also offer a home oath to the record circle within 1 day. The oath is not a pledge of romance. It is a pledge of origin and honesty. It prevents false names in the ward. The bond we have seen is valid now. If the home oath is not given by tomorrow at second light, the bond pauses until the oath is done." The hall murmured. The Queen lifted her hand and the sound sank away. She turned to the human. "Can you give a home oath?" she asked. "It is simple. You say your true name, your guild, your place of first learning, and one honest limit. The circle records the sound pattern and the words. "I can," he said. "I will." Then after the morning round, she said, "You will go to the record circle with the nurse. The oath takes but a short time." He bowed his head. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Queen stood, which meant the hearing would close soon. "Before we end, I ask one more thing," she said to both of them. "Teach now, while the hall watches. Give our staff 3 steps they can use today in any ward, even without new tools." The nurse and the human did not need to plan. The night had already written the lesson in their hands. The nurse spoke first. "Step 1, she said. "Slow the room. We lower our voices. We set a count. We show the smallest ones that the world is steady." "Step 2, the human said. "Smooth the air. If you have cushions, use them to take the bite out of the vent. If you have none, hang a soft barrier that moves. Do not make it stiff. Let it breathe." "Step 3, the nurse said. "Share the work. 1 counts. 1 watches the lines. If you are alone, you ask a guardian to touch the braid and keep the beat. Care belongs to more than one." Midday light fell across the lantern in the hall. The Queen sat with a calm face. The counselor stood under the lantern with the old case. The seal in old gold wax broke with a soft sound. A hush moved through the seats, the kind of hush that comes when words from the past are about to speak again. The counselor lifted the first page. "This is an archive ruling from a queen 3 generations ago," the counselor said. "It is called On Vows Born from Tools. It was written after a translator once turned a greeting into a wedding and frightened 2 families. A small ripple of quiet humor passed through the room. Then the counselor read in an even tone, "When a vow is heard through a tool, the vow is not void," the old ruling said, "but it must be confirmed by intent. Confirmation must happen within 1 sun cycle. 2 steps prove intent. The partner speaks without translation at the resonance table. An intent witness from the place of care confirms that actions match the vow." The counselor lowered the page. "There is also a test for the tool," the counselor added. "The translation band must be checked to be sure its reading was in safe range. If the band was far from safe range, the vow pauses until truth is set straight." The Queen's eyes went to the nurse and then to the human. "We can do these steps now," she said. "The day still holds light." The nurse bowed her head. "I will serve as intent witness," she said, "and I ask that a guardian from the ward be allowed to stand with me. The ward carries the result of our actions." The Queen agreed at once. A guard slipped away to fetch a guardian who had watched the night work. The counselor called for the resonance table to be brought from the archives room. 2 aides rolled in a low, round table with a smooth stone top that shone like water. It had 3 shallow rings carved into it. Small crystals were set into the rings like seeds. A simple tool, the Queen said with a small smile, but a careful one. The human looked at the table and felt the same quiet respect he felt for a good vent. Plain, clean, and honest. He also felt the small count in his chest that had carried him through the morning. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. The counselor held up the translation band. "We will test this first," the counselor said. "If it is far from safe range, the rest must wait until we set the truth of its reading." The human stepped forward. "Before you test it," he said, "let me show you how I check the small sound pickups in the band. If a bit of dust sits on the grill, the tone reads sharp by a hair." The counselor looked ready to say no, then saw the Queen's slight nod. "You may clean it while we watch," the counselor said. The human used a sterile brush and a small puff of air from a hand bulb. He did not hurry. He held the band to the light and turned it until he saw the last fine speck, then slid it free. He plugged the band into the table's port. The crystals glowed with a soft line. The aide ran the test tone. The line held inside the safe window. The aide tried a second tone. The line held again. The band was within safe range. The aide said. A door at the side opened. A guardian from the nursery ward entered with a steady step. She carried her counting braid in her hand and held her head high the way someone holds their child's hope. She took a place near the nurse. "I will witness," she said in a soft voice that still reached the back row. The Queen lifted a hand. "Then we go to the table," she said. "We will listen for intent." The nurse and the human stood on one side of the resonance table. The counselor and the aide stood on the other. The Queen was near the lantern, with a clear line of sight. The hall seemed to take one breath together and then hold it. "First step," the counselor said, "speak without translation." The human rested his fingers on the ring closest to him. The stone was cool and smooth. The crystals in the ring woke with a dim glow. He looked at the nurse. He did not need her to remind him of the right word. He had practiced in the night until his mouth held the shape clean. He spoke the simple phrase in the nurse's language. "I stand today as your partner in care." He added the careful sentence they had agreed he could keep. "I promise only what I can do with my own hands and my own voice." The first ring glowed bright and steady. The crystals made no harsh sound. They held a quiet hum like a bowl touched by a finger. The counselor glanced at the aide, who nodded. "Second step," the counselor said. "Intent witness." The nurse did not claim a grand speech. She put her palm on the second ring and spoke like she did in the ward. Simple, clear, and kind. "He worked the hours with me," she said. "He kept the air steady. He taught what he knew. He refused to claim more than he could do. He kept truth as his measure. I confirm that his actions matched his words." The second ring glowed. The hum deepened. It was the sound a room makes when it is safe. The guardian placed her fingers on the third ring. Her braid touched the edge of the stone. "I watched my child sleep," she said. "The room felt kind. I saw the two of them steady us. I confirm the bond as a help to the ward." The third ring joined the hum. The sound from the table felt like the path of voices under the floor. A quiet that was full, not empty. The counselor looked down at the old page and up at the table. "The ruling is satisfied," the counselor said, in a voice that was not warm but was fair. The Queen opened her hand in a small gesture of thanks to all three. "Intent stands," she said. "The bond continues by choice and by action." A soft stir of relief moved through the benches. It felt like wind in tall grass. The human let out a breath he had held without knowing. He touched the counting thread on his wrist. It grounded him the way a hand on a wall panel grounds a tech in a storm. Before the hall could relax too far, a low bass note rolled through the floor. The doors shook a little on their hinges. A guard's voice sounded softly from the side. Docking pulse. The docking of a heavy supply craft had sent a wave through the ship's frame. It was not dangerous, but it made the resonance table's tone waver. The crystals began to sing in a thin, uneasy way. If the sound continued, the table would be useless for the rest of the day. The aide reached to cover the crystals with cloth. The counselor held up a hand. "Do not touch it while it rings," the counselor said. "We could crack a mount." The queen looked to the human. "Can you quiet the room?" she asked, not as a command but as a question to someone who might know the answer. He felt the floor with his feet the way he had felt the vent with his palm. The wave had a simple path. It ran along the long wall, hit the end, bounced, and came back. He had seen this in old ship hulls. He had learned to break the path with a soft barrier that was not tight. "Please bring 2 chairs, a folded blanket, and 3 of the ward's clear cushions," he said. The guards moved. The items arrived fast. He placed the chairs on either side of the table, not touching it, only near enough to matter. He made a small roof from the folded blanket, leaving gaps at the edges so air could move. He set the clear cushions near the floor where the wave ran. The cushions rose and fell by a finger's width and took the bite out of the bass note. The blanket moved a little like a slow flag. The thin, uneasy tone from the crystals faded. The table's hum settled into a low, even sound again. The aide looked surprised. The counselor looked relieved and tried not to show it. "It is the same as the wall flow," the human said, keeping his words plain for the hall. "We do not fight the wave. We give it a soft path. We let it spend itself." The queen's eyes warmed. "Thank you," she said. "We will keep the table safe for others who come to speak." A bell on the side wall blinked once. It was not the sharp tone of danger, it was the small chime that meant, "Listen." The city ward nurse from the river district had a message. The storm had lifted, but a pressure surge would come at night, when cold air dropped fast. The surge could pull on doors and vents across the city all at once. They needed guidance they could send to every ward before sunset. The queen looked at the nurse and the human. "Can you give the city 3 lines as clear as the step lesson this morning?" she asked. "We need words that fit on 1 page and hold in one head." The nurse nodded. "We can," she said. The counselor added, "The lines must also name who signs. The court will ask who takes the weight. Guidance is not a whisper, it is a promise of method." The human did not hide from that weight. "We will sign with both names," he said. "We will also write how to check and how to stop if the method does not fit a room." They stepped to a side table with a simple writing pad. The nurse held the stylus. The human spoke the first draft in clean lines. The queen and the hall listened as if the writing too was a kind of vow. "City Surge Guide," the nurse read as she wrote. "Lower voices. Begin the count. Calm the room first. Make soft walls near strong pulls, sheets that breathe, never tight. Watch the line. If it flattens and breath eases, continue. If it wobbles worse, stop and call for help." She looked up. "Simple enough," she said. The human added one more line. "Check tools after. Clean grills. Boil what you caught. Throw away nets that look wrong. Write the time so the next shift knows." The counselor nodded at that line. "Responsibility is in the after," the counselor said. "Good." The queen asked for the signatures. The nurse signed with her ward mark. The human signed with his guild number and his true name from the record circle. The aide scanned the page. In a moment, it went out by link to the city wards. The ta-da hall began to rise from their seats. The main hearing was over. People seemed lighter. The guild safety circle met in a plain room with a low ceiling and a long table. Old diagrams of vents and doors hung on the walls. 7 guild members sat with slates and small lights. They greeted the nurse and the human with brief nods. There was no ceremony, only work. The chair of the circle spoke first. "We read your guide," she said. "It is clear. We want to add safety lines so nobody builds a wall that blocks a door. We will test on our wind frame now." The wind frame was a simple rig, a fan at one end, a door in the middle, and a short hall with sensors. A young guild tech set the fan to a pull that matched the storm forecast. The door shivered in its frame. Papers on the table stirred. "Show us your soft, eh?" "Wall," the chair said. The human took a sheet and 2 chairs. He clipped the sheet at shoulder height and let the bottom hang loose. The pull softened at once. He placed 2 fingers by the floor gap. Air still moved through. The door could open if needed. "Now the rule," the nurse said, writing on a board in large, simple lines. "Always leave a hand-wide gap at the floor by each door. Never seal an exit. If a sheet blocks sight, lower it by a hand. If the line wobbles worse, stop and call." They tested again with stronger pull. The sheet breathed. The sensors showed a kinder curve. The chair smiled a little and tapped the board with her pen. "Short words," she said. "Good. Add 1 more. Do not hang a wall near heat. Keep cloth away from coils and lamps." The nurse added the line. The chair stamped the guide with the guild mark. "Share this tonight," she said. "We will echo it on our links." They did not waste time. The nurse and the human hurried back through the lift. The storm clouds over the moon had gone from gray to dark steel. The ship's frame made a small sound, not fear but warning. Guards opened their hands as they passed. The corridor lights dimmed a shade for power balance. The Queen was waiting in the small strategy room beside the hall. It was a clean space with 3 screens on the wall and a large table covered in a simple map of the city. Lines on the map showed rivers, hills, and clinic wards. Each ward had a small light that could glow green, yellow, or red. A round stone sat in the corner, the resonance table, now safe under its blanket and cushions. "You are just in time," the Queen said. "The cold drop begins within the hour. We will keep our link open to the wards. Say only what helps. Speak in short lines." The counselor stood near the map with 2 aides. The narrow shoulders looked lighter today, as if someone had taken a weight off. The counselor held a slate with the safety lines. The young orderly from the nursery ward was there too, ready to carry messages to the staff room and back. The first gust came like a long breath pulled by a giant. The lights shifted. The fans on the screens spun faster. 1 green dot on the river turned yellow, then another in the market district. Doors pulled. People moved. The Queen did not raise her voice. She pointed to the first screen. "River ward," she said. "You have the path." The river ward nurse answered at once. "We count first," she said for her ward. Her voice stayed calm. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. The human added the soft wall lines over the city link. 2 chairs. 1 sheet. Clip at shoulder height. Leave a hand-wide gap at the floor. Watch the line. If better, continue. If worse, stop and call. On the screen, the river ward moved like a practice team. A guardian held a chair. A nurse clipped the sheet. A tech checked the floor gap with a hand. The vent graph smoothed by a small but important amount. The color shifted toward green. The Queen placed 1 hand on the table's map as if lending her warmth to the spot. The market ward called next. "Our outer door sticks," the voice said. "When people enter, the pull grows sharp. We fear a rush at the entry." "Slow," the nurse said into the link. "Post a friendly voice at the door, 1 person in at a time. Use a thin rope to guide the line. Give each person a pace. We count together in the line the way we count in the ward. Calm comes before speed." On the screen, a clerk with steady hands set a rope stanchion. A guard with an open hand showed the pace, 3 steps on the count, small pause, 3 steps, small pause. People followed. The pull on the door softened enough to stop the wobble. Inside the ward, a nurse hung a sheet as a soft wall and left the hand gap. The graph eased. The dot turned quiet yellow, moving toward green. A hill ward called. "We have 2 vents in 1 room," the voice said. 1 pulls, 1 pushes. The air dances, it makes the babies restless. The human leaned closer to the map. "Put a soft wall on the pull side," he said. "On the push side, set a deflector sleeve to aim the air up. Leave the top open so it mixes. Do not face them at each other. Cross the flows like 2 roads that do not meet." They did it. The flows crossed without fighting. The music in the room rose by a half step. The babies settled. A guardian waved at the camera with a small smile and then, embarrassed, put the hand down again. The queen smiled too and then hid it so she would not steal anyone's pride. The storm grew stronger. The city map held more yellow dots. The screen showed small rooms in tall buildings where families tried to keep warm. The queen asked the link to carry a short message to homes, not just to wards. The nurse stepped into the light. She showed how to make a soft wall with a scarf tied to 2 chair backs and how to leave a hand gap by the floor. The human showed how to check a door so it could still open. They did it once facing the camera and once to the side so people could copy. The queen spoke the 4 rules slowly. Calm first, soft walls that breathe, hand-wide gap at the floor, stop if worse, call for help. The city listened. The map grew steady. Yellow dots did not race to red. They held and moved back and forth like a tide. But no red stayed for long. Then a call came that did not sound like the others. It was the old clinic by the East Canal. A small place with a low roof and an older vent system. Our generator will switch, the tech said, trying to keep fear out of his voice. The change may make the fans stutter. We have a room full of small ones. We can hold for 2 minutes without full pull. More than that will be hard. The queen pointed to the screen and gave the floor to the nurse. The nurse spoke to the old clinic team with firm kindness. You will not be alone, she said. Everybody will count with you. Palace, river, market, hill. All count as one so your room hears our calm. On the change, lower voices. Hold a soft wall ready. When the fans return, lift it by a hand to let the new pull through. Human, guide the sleeve on the push side. The human nodded. Prepare a sleeve now, he said. Use a strip of clean cloth and a clip. Aim upward to the corner of the ceiling. When the fans come back, do not open the soft wall all at once. Lift a hand. Count. Lift another hand. Let the room catch the rhythm. The whole city counted. It was a small thing and a large thing at once. In a tower flat, a grandparent touched a scarf and counted. In a bus station, a guard looked at the door and counted. In the palace nursery, the young orderly touched the braid and counted. In the strategy room, the queen placed both palms on the map and counted, her eyes closed, her voice low, her breath steady. The old clinic's generator switched. The fans stuttered. The soft wall waited. The count held. When the pull returned, the nurse at the old clinic lifted the cloth by a hand and then another on the rhythm. The room did not jump. The graph wavered and then smoothed. A guardian wept and then laughed at herself for weeping. The tech sent a small thumbs up toward the camera with a shy look. The dot on the map held yellow and then settled toward green. Hours passed in steady work. The worst of the cold drop came, hit, and began to go. The city did not crack. The rules were small and clear. People followed them. The guides spread fast because they were simple. A few times the hall heard a sharp tone and sent help, but each time the call ended with calm. Near midnight, the wind eased by a shade. The map of the city looked like a field at dusk with many fireflies, no blazes. The queen let the air in the strategy room relax. She looked at the nurse and the human and the counselor. We hold until morning, she said, but the tide has turned. The counselor, who had guarded rules like walls, put the slate down and rubbed tired eyes. We will write the change to the old law tonight, the counselor said. It will be ready in the morning. The rule will say that when a tool rings a vow, the person may confirm or release within 1 sun cycle, without shame, if actions show care and honesty. We will move from traps to truth. The nurse met the counselor's eyes and gave a small nod of thanks. The human wanted to say many words, but he kept to the short ones he had learned were best in this place. Good, he said. The last hard gust came and went. The map held steady. The queen dismissed most of the aides to sleep. She stayed with the small group and sipped warm tea. No one talked much. They watched, they counted, and they answered when someone needed a word. At first light, the storm had lifted. The city was quiet in the way a city is quiet after a long night. Not silent, but soft. The river ward sent a picture of a window with frost like feathers. The hill ward sent a picture of 2 chairs and a sheet. neatly folded for the next time. The market ward sent a picture of a rope post with a small sign that read, 3 steps on the count. The Queen stood. "The night is done," she said. "The wards did well. Go rest, but stop by the ward first. People will want to see your faces before sleep." They walked back to the nursery room. The young orderly ran to meet them, then remembered,